Welcome back, everyone, to the Discover the Future podcast here with the founder of Aptera Motors with the coolest damn solar vehicle you had ever seen. It feels like you are in space, but here on Earth. So, Chris, Anthony, we'd like to welcome you and looking forward to having this conversation. We have Equity Crowdfunding Week coming up next week, but make sure you go out and you come see their unveiling. So, I had the opportunity to go check it out a few weeks ago when their ambassadors got to see it first. But now the equity crowdfunding industry officially gets to see the Gamma vehicle. And we're going to dive into all that cool stuff about it right now. How's it going? How's it going, Chris? And then one last thing, we also have Vin. Vin, because I get you every time. Can you introduce yourself, give your last name, because I don't want to botch it like I did the last time.
No worries. I'm Vin Narayanan, Vice President of Strategy for KingsCrowd. KingsCrowd is the first data and analytics platform for the startup ecosystem. So basically, we gather tons of data points on startups that are raising, run it through an algorithm, and spit out a score and write analyst reports, all to help people discover and invest in new startup opportunities.
Perfect. And then if you have not watched one of these Discover the Future series so far, my name is Lorel Scott. I am the co-founder and COO of StartupStarter, where we are revolutionizing the way people learn business. So if you want to learn business, you come here. And Chris, what's going on, man?
Hey, Lorel. Hey, Vin. Good to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we dive right in, man. So revolutionizing EV, right? You're going to talk at the conference. We get to actually see it live in person, roll in at the conference, and I'm super excited to share that with people. But some of the questions I have. So talk to us a little bit about Aptera. Tell us a little bit more so that people that don't know.
Aptera really started with the math equation for where does energy go in transportation. Steve Fambro founded the company with the thought of, even when you buy a really small car, it still doesn't get that great at gas mileage. You'd figure you'd buy a small car and, a big car gets 30 miles per gallon. So a small car should get twice the fuel efficiency. That's just not the case. When you really look at things, cars and SUVs traveling at highway speeds use more than 60% of their fuel just pushing air out of the way. So if you're going to make an efficient transportation device, it needs to be infinitely aerodynamic. If you look at the second biggest loss, it's weight. How heavy the vehicle is, cost you energy on every tire rotation. And if you can minimize the weight, you get even better fuel economy. And then if you look at the powertrain, combustion engines are just horrible at the way they burn fuel because you only get 25 to 27% of the energy out of the gasoline you burn to your wheels to actually propel your vehicle down the road. So we put all of those things together with first principles engineering and said, hey, if we make something that's aerodynamic, lightweight, has a super efficient powertrain, what does that look like? And you end up with a vehicle that looks much more like a fish or a bird than a typical SUV or sedan, and something that can get you 350 miles per gallon equivalent. That is the Aptera. That's a product that we introduced about 18 months ago. And if you have a very efficient vehicle, then you can do cool things like add solar panels to it. So you can get really useful range. So we added a solar roof to the Aptera, and we get about 40 miles a day of free power from the sun. So you have, up to 1,000 miles of range in your battery pack when it's fully charged. But every day, as long as you park your Aptera out in the sun, you get 40 free miles to do with what you please. You can feed it back to your house or the grid and use that extra power. Or if you just drive 40 miles a day, you basically never have to plug the Aptera in. So we've been extremely excited to launch this product to the public. We've been humbled by the 15,000 investors that we've taken in over the last 2 years, and we have just an amazing audience, over 37,000 orders for the Aptera now, and just a great proliferation of our story, which we think is a positive one. We see the EV industry going towards bigger and more energy consuming devices, big SUVs, big trucks. We're pointed in exactly the opposite direction. And we think because we've gotten such marvelous public support that it's a real validation of our business model and that people really care about their impact on the planet, how much energy they use to go per mile and how much material it takes to create their transportation devices. I mean, there's lots of bigger EVs out there now where the battery pack weighs more than the whole Aptera. So when you think that from an environmental impact perspective, that cobalt had to come out of the ground, that aluminum, that copper, all these materials had to go into that big transportation device. And if you don't need to tool around 6 or 8 people, why be so wasteful with those materials? We think they're put to much better use in a vehicle like the Aptera. So we hope the whole industry, adopts our ethos, and all of transportation becomes more efficient over time.
Now, Chris, you cannot be up here answering all of our questions before we get to the questions, okay?
Oh, you gotta tease it in the beginning, and then you
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
reinforce
you gotta
your,
tease us, yeah, you were hitting a lot of the points that we wanted to talk to you about. I do want to make a correction in terms of your title. It's Chris. Chris is the CEO at Aptera. Man, so this is really cool. So, like, what has this journey been like for you? From inception to where you guys have grown so significantly. I mean, having the opportunity to come down and actually tour the facility was like, wow, breathtaking. Like, this is a lot of work that you guys have put into this. Like, tell me a little bit more about just the journey from the beginning.
Any technical journey like this is really all about the people you get involved in it. And building our team from 18 months ago, which was nothing, to having over 100 people at Aptera now and 70 contractors outside of Aptera working on this project is just amazing to see the kind of engineering talent, and other skills talent that are drawn to this. They see this as a real solution for humanity, to make the world a better place. And people have come aboard at salaries that they could have been making a lot more money somewhere else, and have moved from other parts of the country and really changed their lives. But it's all in support of our vision, to make the world of transportation more efficient. And as it's all come together, it's just amazing. A really complex program like this, which kind of has 50 different angles, kind of all coalesces around where we're at right now, which is preparing a vehicle for production. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have a production vehicle design, and then be scaling our production into 2023 and be off to the races. But it's a lot of moving parts that have to come together, but it's really all about the people that have made it happen. And we're just terribly grateful for the support of the team, and the execution of the team, and that they're all just really knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, I'm a Detroit guy, Chris. Grew up in an automotive family, grew up in and around the automotive industry. What was the biggest, I mean, you talk about the technical challenge and the engineers hard at work. What was the biggest technical hurdle you had to overcome to get to the point where you are right now?
A solid question. We're on the bleeding edge of science in so many areas. I don't know that I could pinpoint any one area. The aerodynamics have really been enabled by the computational tools that are available today. I can upload onto Amazon Web Services a simulation, and have a simulation done in 4 hours. Now, which is also an iterative simulation. So it's literally the computer looking at aerodynamics problems thousands of times and giving us the solution. So I think, from a technical perspective, making the most aerodynamic vehicle ever, for highway speeds and to be highway capable and really functional, was a huge challenge. Maybe more challenging was the light weighting of the Aptera. But again, it falls back to the computational tools where we could generatively design, basically give artificial intelligence a problem with a metal part and say, this is what the metal part has to do. How could we take material out to make it as lightweight as possible? And the artificial intelligence goes through thousands of iterations of taking out metal here and reanalyzing the stresses and see if it increased in stresses or decreased in stresses. And it'll go through and just pluck out material where it can. Eventually, you end up with something that looks more like a bird bone than a traditional automotive part from Detroit. But it has shaved 60% of the metal weight out of the vehicle, so it's really impactful to efficiency. And then you cruise over into compounding curved solar panels, and it's a whole new adventure in material science. And how do you make a solar cell that's made of a crystal bend in 2 directions? not an easy task, but our solar team has done amazing work in putting that together. And they're actually in production now. They're producing about 10 panels a day, which is really, really cool to be the first part of the company that's in production. Now they're integrating a manufacturing execution system, which is, really data-driven manufacturing processes, which is really cool. So I could go through a laundry list of, electrical engineering challenges, charge controller for the solar and, our IO system. But it really is just, a vehicle program like this comes with challenges in so many different directions. I've likened it to, a Formula One team where you're trying to find a little edge in every different angle to win the race. We're trying to find a little edge at every different angle to shave down our watt hours per mile. And if we use less energy per mile, we have less of an impact on the planet. We cost less to fuel. We can lower the size of components and wiring harnesses. Like everything about our efficiency ethos makes, the product better. It makes the lives of the people that are going to own our product better, and it makes the planet better at the end of the day. So eking it out in every direction is what we're all about.
This next part is a two-part question here. When it comes to the gamma itself, right? When you talk about the pre-production phase, like what should prospective investors know about like what their money is going towards or what they're really investing in currently? And then I'll follow up with the following question.
Yeah, we broke our development path down into 4 stages following the Greek alphabet: alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We just released our gamma vehicle at a show a month ago or so, but that vehicle was designed, over 8 months ago. You have to pin the design and then you have to build what you designed. The Delta version of our vehicle is pre-production vehicle. So right now with Gamma, we consider that to be a 80% production contented vehicle. With the Delta design, we will consider that to be, a 95% production contented vehicle. So kind of what you see is what you will get in production. And, we're wrapping up that design by the end of the year. But now that we have so much production content in the vehicle, now we have, tooling and equipment expenses and ED&T to lock down all the pieces and parts of that Delta vehicle to actually put it in production in 2023. So if someone was to come and invest in Aptera today, their money would go right towards that effort. The engineering fees to get those parts supplied to us in 2023, the equipment that we need to actually put the vehicle together and the solar panels together and the battery pack together, and the tooling for a lot of parts that, you just have to buy the tools for them. So if you want to make a cast suspension part, you got to pay the company to build the tool for that. All of our composite parts need really huge tools to build these sophisticated carbon fiber composite parts. So, investing in today really does have a tangible effect on our future because it gives us all the tools we need to actually start production next year.
There's so many moving pieces and so many like really cool elements. And I love when I came to the production studio, like literally you showed us every piece of the car, broke it down, and then poof, now you have the actual full vehicle. Love that part. So the other side of that is you have so much support. You have a lot of investors who have invested into Aptera already. And you have a very robust ambassador program, which is one of the first companies that I've seen in equity crowdfunding and really leveraging an actual ambassadors program. We've been working with them on the conference as well. Like, how do you build for people out there? Who are launching an equity crowdfunding campaign? How do you build an early fan base, customer base for Aptera specifically, right? And what kind of advice would you give people in the role of developing those audiences?
Yeah, our amazing Chief Marketing Officer, Sarah Hardwick, and her team have done amazing things to get the ball rolling. 18 months ago, we really just had a video of one of our alpha units, one of our very early units, to kind of give people the idea of what solar mobility could be about and how it could impact their lives. We had a few thousand orders in our first couple weeks, and we were, kind of off to the races. Sarah brought up, hey, I bet there could be a lot of kind of ambassadors, people that are really passionate about this and want to talk to their local community or help us advocate for the product. Maybe I'll send out an email to all of our early people. There was only a couple thousand then, and see, who would really be a supporter. And, she got like 100 responses like right away. So, I think it really was on the back of how compelling the product was and how open we are with our community. I think sometimes to a fault, we over communicate or try to on everything we do. When we design a new part, when we get a new piece of equipment, when we have a new iteration of the vehicle or go out and do testing, we try to get that information out to the public so they can follow along with what we're doing. I think I'm sometimes a fire hose of information, people say, which we don't parse words. We're not trying to create this messaging for the brand. We aren't trying to we didn't run a focus group and now we have to stick to this messaging for this product because we want it to compete against other products differently. If you want a first principles engineering and something that is the best in efficiency, Aptera is what you want. If you want solar powered transportation, Aptera is what you want. There's really nowhere else to go for that. So we felt that just being infinitely honest and upfront is the way to be. And I think that really has endeared us to a lot of people that get passionate about projects like this. We can let them go out and tell our story, and they can know that if people go down the rabbit hole on YouTube or on our information, that they'll find us to be a company that's open and honest. We're right to repair company, so we're going to help people with the product years in the future to keep them on the road as long as possible. And I think from everything from our pricing model to how we let people see information about their vehicles. A lot of people that buy electric vehicles now, it's kind of a black box. It's a mystery on what's going on with the vehicle. From the battery pack to the drive system, we give people the tools to actually see what's going on with every individual battery cell in their battery pack, so they know how long that battery pack will last. We'll be giving them terrific amounts of information on their solar power production, so maybe they can park at a different angle one day than the day before, so they can produce more power. Things like that, I think, are terribly interesting. And it's amazing to have over 800 brand ambassadors around the world. We get represented at a lot of conferences and, community events and just people out there doing great work, singing the praises of Aptera. And eventually what we hope that does and what they hope it will do is help broaden the adoption of Aptera. Putting an Aptera on the road is like taking 40 combustion vehicles off the road. The amount of carbon offset, per vehicle at, almost 9,000 pounds a year is just, amazingly impactful. So, for those people, it's not they're supporting a particular company that's building a particular product. They're supporting our vision of making transportation one of the biggest carbon contributors on Earth, a much more efficient thing. The best of science can make the world a better place by using less energy, and they see that and the impacts that it can make, and they go off and tell our story. I would say to other startups who are trying to help people learn is that make a compelling story about your company and why you're doing what you do. Don't focus on the product if you want brand ambassadors. If you focus on the product, you can get a lot of people to buy your very cool product, but you're not going to get people to represent your vision to the world. Start with the ethos of how can I make X better. And if your company starts with a strong ethos, then yeah, people will help you spread the word.
Mission driven.
Yeah.
What are some unique ways you've seen brand ambassadors sort of driving the mission and spreading the word and sharing the word?
Everything from guerrilla advertising, like printing out stuff on their home printer to leave at tables at some local green conference or clean tech conference, to spending real money to go to some of these climate change initiative conferences and sporting our logo, and just telling people more about Aptera. In the end, it's usually, probably the private conversations with people that spread best. Hey, I know about this new cool solar transportation thing, and I think you should know about it too. So they one-on-one talking to people like that is just a huge thing. We have COP27, the climate change conference coming up in Egypt. We were well represented at the last climate change conference in Glasgow by our ambassadors. We think we will be in Egypt as well. So it's amazing that people are willing to put forth their time on behalf of this mission, and their dollars and their printer ink and paper and all this stuff sometimes.
Well, speaking of dollars, why equity crowdfunding?
we thought that our message of first principles engineering would ring true. We don't really know, but we thought that we would be terribly unique in the transportation space. Just no one's attacked the problem like we have. And with uniqueness, I think comes interest. We're kind of a polarizing vehicle. Some people see our three-wheeled Aptera, looks like a fish, not like a sports car, and people go, ugh, I'll never drive a three-wheeled thing, and we think that that is fine. But the people that see it, and they see science, and they see the best of engineering, and they see impact to the environment, and they see the most unique vehicle they could ever drive in their community. Those people are willing to put their support. Just like we talked about our ambassadors, but also in terms of dollars. So the crowdfunding was a way of, hey, how do we get people involved in this story very early on? And how do we, take very minimal investments? We started with $100 minimum investment, and people put down $100. They're now involved in the story. And I guarantee, as you inform them more about your progress and the things you're doing and why you're doing it, they will tell other people. They have $100 at stake now. Whether it's $100,000 or $10,000, those people, they've got skin in the game. So I think crowdfunding is just a great way to really get people bought into your story for the long term. Those people that invested early, we those investments were like 40 cents. Now we're selling equity at $10.50. So those people, if we go big and have an IPO in the next year, 2 years, wow, what an amazing thing. People would have loved to invested. I would have loved to invested in the early Google or Tesla, but it wasn't available 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It's only through the Crowdfunding Act, as part of the Jobs Act, that became a crowdfunding provision to
Right.
let this happen, that people can now invest a little bit of money in really compelling and big ideas. And if they pay off like Google or Tesla, then we'll make a lot of people happy. So I think it's a great brand new mechanism to invest with your heart and your spirit in things that you find compelling or things that you love, and be along for the journey. Versus waiting for them to IPO and then picking up their story and just buying stock on the public markets. You're not in early enough to have the payback be super compelling. So it's an amazing mechanism for us, and it's built us 15,000 very loyal fans. I'm sure 15,000 screaming Elvis fans can't be wrong. So with 15,000 supporters, we think that we're on the right track.
Yeah, and I think what it is that, and we keep finding this in all the conversations that we're having. We've talked about this several times throughout this series leading up to this conference. Is that like there's still just a huge lack of people, right? The masses of people who actually know what equity crowdfunding is, how they can invest in it, how their company can get investment from equity crowdfunding by launching a campaign. And what you guys have really done is taken a whole different turn into how you go about doing that. And obviously, you guys have so many supporters. Also, a lot of them double as your like pre-order customers who are waiting for the launch and for one to come out. What do
Yeah.
you think the impact on equity crowdfunding will look like when it comes to investing over the next 10 years? Like where do you see equity crowdfunding going?
I think they've already broadened the scope of equity crowdfunding, from the legislative perspective. Now you can raise a lot more money early in your crowdfunding. I hope that they continue to do that because, a lot of the big idea businesses take a lot of capital, including ours. We won't be able to raise all the funding that we need from crowdfunding. We'll have to find some private sources of capital too. But if they broaden, the crowdfunding, then I think, you'll find, more impressive business models that can latch on to crowdfunding. And as those models become successful, I think more people will be interested. The more crowdfunded companies that go public and allow for healthy exits for their early investors, the more I think crowdfunding will get momentum behind it, and the more people will be interested. Every story, of someone, that invested very little money and then became a multimillionaire leads to other people saying, "Oh, how did you do that?" So,
Yeah.
I hope that in the next 10 years, crowdfunding will just grow and grow, and people will really be able to, invest with their heart,
Yeah.
and invest in super compelling ideas, and those ideas become successful, and then that success, breeds more crowdfunding interest.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot more work to do, right? To really make it go mainstream, really get the word out there and really educate people on, the use of equity crowdfunding and this being another means of raising capital. What I find is really interesting is that it is a quickly growing industry. And I feel like we can grow even faster with more education around these regulations, around the
Yeah.
process, what it takes to be able to launch these things. So I want to, in 3 words, okay, in 3 words, how would you say Aptera compares to other EV vehicles out there? 3 words.
Hmm. In 3 words,
Yeah, I kind of sprung that one on you. I'm
um,
sorry.
efficient, solar, and free.
Ooh, okay. I like that. I like that.
Ooh, free is a magic word.
Yeah, yeah. What kind of free are we talking about?
Well, if you drive, in California, the average commute's about 31 miles a day. If you have an Aptera and you charge your vehicle with 40 miles a day free from the sun, your transportation is free. You don't pay for gas. You don't pay for
Yeah.
electricity. All you have to do is leave your Aptera outside. So I think, American consumers, aren't as concerned with the variable cost of their transportation, meaning the fluctuation in gas prices. But with gas at $6, $7 a gallon, trust me, there's some people thinking about it.
Exactly.
And free transportation is, just the holy grail, right? So
Yeah, I mean, and then also you get some tax credits too. Like, come on, why would you miss out on the tax credits? We want all the money we can get. I mean, especially with gas being so high, right? And then I would love to kind of like talk about specifically your excitement. How excited are you guys around the conference, Equity Crowdfunding? You were part of the conference for 2021 Equity Crowdfunding Week, which we did hybrid last year. What excites you about this year? And you want to kind of talk about like what you guys are doing with unveiling. We have some cool stuff to preview.
yeah, we're going to bring Gamma up to the show, so people can get close and personal, with the transportation of the future. And I'm terribly excited to see people in person, and hopefully, be a mentor to a lot of startups that are trying to go down the same path we are. There's a lot of early things that you can do to position yourself for success, and I think it'll just be a great and energetic environment to talk about how we've gotten to where we are and how we can help other people get there as well.
Great. Vin, you
Yes.
got any final questions you want to ask?
Yeah, just one question. Last question for me is, I mean, you talk about meeting other founders and talking about equity crowdfunding, which is really cool. You've been successful. You've done a really good job raising money. What's the one bit or two bits of advice you would give to other founders who are looking to head down this path?
Be as open and honest with your story as you can, because if you want people to endear themselves to your company and your product, they can't feel like they're being marketed to or sold to.
Mm-hmm.
Focus grouping your product and making ad slicks, that kind of pit you against the competition, is not the way to win loyal fans and people that are betting on you to change the future. So be open and honest, and let people in on your story, because people want to be inspired. People want to follow great successful stories, cool companies trying to change the world. We just came off of 2 years of a COVID depression, and now Putin threatening Europe is a whole another mess. People want inspiration, and it's kind of hard to find in a lot of places. So try to make your company and your story that inspiration so people can follow along.
I love it, man. It's always great to catch up with you. It's always great to chat with you. I've actually had the opportunity to see you since we got out of COVID, so I'm excited to see you again next week. Appreciate it. Any last words or that you want to say, Chris? Anything you want people to know, or any potential people who would like to learn more or invest into Aptera?
Our business model is a compelling one because we focus on efficiency. It enables everything else in our business model. The battery pack for us is smaller. That's the number one cost component in your bill of materials for an electric vehicle. All of our metal weighs a lot less, and so we have to pay less for materials. And we've had great work with lean manufacturing experts like Sandy Monroe to really lean out the vehicle so we can build it efficiently and reduce part count, make things serve double and triple duty in our design. And I think when you bring all those pieces of the puzzle together, it's a very healthy business model and one that can have a real impact on our future. So we hope that people will go to invest.aptera.us and support us, and hopefully come out to the crowdfunding week to see what startup culture is all about and how these other great companies are going to change the world as well.
Perfect, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. Chris, we really appreciate it. Like you said, if you have not registered for 2022 Equity Crowdfunding Week, you don't know what you're in for. We have some amazing companies coming to exhibit. We have an amazing space that we have launched. So come check it out. Register November 9th through the 11th and check out the unveiling of Aptera to the equity crowdfunding industry. So, Chris, thank you so much. Vin, appreciate your time every time. And I will see you guys next week.